by Riverside.
Hello and welcome back to TheSadFan, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything that made you sad. Obviously, well, I feel like I sound a little bit better. My team may feel like I sound a little bit more annoying, and that's okay. In the production meeting, it was heavy on the Oregon slander, and I apologize, because there's really no reason for that when you beat a powerhouse like Portland State 81-0. I think that's what it was. I don't know. I lost count.
81-7.
81-7. Oh, they allowed 7 points. Watch out. Not as good as Oklahoma. But all of that needs to wait. We are going to get to that. I've got some things to say now with the conference realignment being nearly complete, with Stanford and Cal going to the ACC, completing what is the weirdest division in college sports. I thought it was going to be the Big Ten. I was wrong. And we should start where every other sports show in the whole world started, on Deion Sanders in Colorado.
They're a juggernaut.
Juggernaut. At least two of them. At least two of the players are.
Travis Hunter is a monster. Like, I don't even know.
We're saying that week one. Okay. I understand that they'd be a very hyped up TCU team. That, you know, everyone thought that, you know, they're just off the back of, like, going to the CFP. Like, they're totally going to be in it for the chase for this year. Turns out, nah, dude. Like, they just aren't good. And they were totally outcoached, outclassed, outplayed, like, all of it by Colorado, which is great. But it's still too early to call them a juggernaut. I think there's
I don't know
some
if
issues.
You could sense the sarcasm.
Not really.
That is a lot of the overreaction, though. Colorado's going to run through everyone. I was like, whoa, guys.
I mean, I'm calling 7 wins this year.
7. I called 6 with Chelsea. I told you that, and I called it a long time ago. I said at least 6 wins when it was just Chelsea and I doing the show. I said they're going to make a bowl game. Go ahead, Chelsea.
I still think, like they're going to make a bowl game, but I mean, I have concerns. Justin, I can't remember his name right now, off the top of my head, but he's playing both sides of the ball, like every snap. What? Like, how is that supposed to last for an entire season? How is he supposed to keep that?
It's not Justin.
What is it?
It's Hunter, right?
Travis Hunter.
Who you referred to? Yeah, Travis Hunter.
Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. I was mad sick this weekend. I was just watching for it. Was
I
all
thought
just
Hunter was who you were talking about, but I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, maybe there's a Justin that was also running around both sides of the ball out there, but I think you're talking about Hunter.
I think what they're going to do is, once they kind of get into the meat of their schedule, they're going to keep him on, like, predominantly one side, based on whatever side he's playing best and whatever their need is, I think. I think
Nebraska's going to play them tough. I think Nebraska's going to play them really tough. And I don't even believe in Nebraska.
What?
I'm just letting you know right now. Like, because there's... What do we shut down now? What do we shut... I don't think Sanders... I can't pronounce his first name. Shedeur? Is that how you pronounce his first name?
Shedeur, yeah.
Shedeur Sanders has a great deep ball. And a lot of people are saying he was, but if you watch the beginning of the game, his deep ball was off a little bit. I feel like his intermediate routes to short were good. His accuracy on those pinpoint, I felt like he had a great feel of the game plan. He had a great feel of the defense. He was also playing against a defense that lost, I think, 7 players from last year's roster. So they had a turnover of 7 new players starting for that TCU defense. But I think that Nebraska's going to play him tough. I think Minnesota's not a bad team. And I think a lot of people think Minnesota's a 7 to 8 to maybe even 9 win team. And Nebraska did go toe to toe with them. I think Nebraska's defense is better than people think. I think Matt Rule is going to take offense to it that Deion Sanders is getting all this hype, and I think he's gonna put up a fight. Now, you guys are shaking your head like I said they're going to lose. I didn't say Colorado's going to lose to Nebraska. Who else doesn't have a good deep ball?
The Nebraska quarterback.
And that's how we know him, the Nebraska quarterback.
Pretty much. No, but I mean, like, Nebraska just looked a mess out there last weekend. Like I don't see them going to a bowl game, honestly.
Nope.
No.
I don't see them playing I don't see them playing tough around Colorado, even though they're like, big rivals. I don't see how they're going to turn around in 1 week to make it competitive. I think this one's going to be Colorado, but we'll see.
Yep.
I mean, there's always the miracle of college
football. They're going to play them tougher than I think people are thinking.
I think it'll be over before the end of the third quarter.
That's a bold prediction there. You're going to give them 75% of the game, and then it's going to be over. I don't know. I think it's going to come down to the wire again with Colorado. I think most of Colorado's games this year are going to come down to the wire. I think they have USC after Nebraska. I might be off on that. It's either USC or Utah after Nebraska, I believe, is who's coming to town. And that's going to be your real litmus test, is that game right there. I know Chelsea's looking this up, but how about
No, they're playing Colorado State and then Oregon. So
Oregon was the team I was thinking of. Okay, thank you. So it's Colorado State, which is another warm-up game, and then they've got Oregon, which is going to be a fun game because they're going to throw that ball all over the field. But we'll see. I mean, it's game one. We didn't know what they were going to do with Travis Hunter. We didn't know how good that freshman running back, who is that little guy, Edwards, how good he was going to be for Colorado. So teams catch on. These coaches get paid millions and millions of dollars, not because they're not decent. Okay, I'm not going to say they're all good, but they're decent. They're going to watch film, and they're going to figure out, okay, we need to cover Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? Dabo Swinney needed to cover the ball because it appeared to be fumble after fumble after fumble after fumble after fumble. And then Dabo Swinney up there looking confused, like, I thought God was on our side. Like, it's very funny to watch. Sorry, and I'm not making fun of religion in any way. Just Dabo Swinney is so overly religious with every single thing he does. And Clemson, I hate to break it to everyone.
He's like the Tebow of coaches.
It really is. Really is.
Yeah,
and
that's a fair comparison.
It's super annoying. He's super anti-player empowerment. He's super, I can only coach in college because I get to be the boss. And it's fun to watch him lose. I don't know if you guys share that sentiment, but that's how I feel.
I enjoyed watching Clemson, like, when they first, got really good. And they were... It got really annoying, though, when it was them versus Alabama for, 3 or 4 years in a row.
4.
But it was nice watching them take Alabama down a notch.
Okay.
But
Chelsea,
the magic is over.
Yeah. I mean, there's just irony that they, in the religious piece that they lost to the Duke Blue Devils. I mean, I just kind of enjoyed that little tiny sliver of Schadenfreude. But yeah, I mean, it is always, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say, we love a good underdog story. We love when just seeing the king knocked off his perch. It's pretty great. So it was a fun game, in just that it was blooper ball all over the field on both sides. And it was just what is happening? I was chatting with a bunch of people while the game was going on, and all of us were just in complete shock on both sides of the ball because it was sloppy, it was ugly. I mean, if you look at this box stats, none of it makes sense. Everything's just confusing. Even if you just look back at what the plays were, the play-by-plays, that game makes no sense. And so Dabo Swinney said it was the weirdest game he's ever coached. He's right. It was probably one of the weirder games I've ever watched for a not completely lopsided, weird, playing an FCS school. Those games get weird all the time too. But this one, I've never seen anything like that. And cool. Good for Duke. I hope they go to the Duke Mayo Bowl or something.
I hope they go to a bowl.
The Mayo Bowl.
I think it's hilarious to watch the big powers fall down. But just because, I think Dabo's doing this thing as if he stayed humble the whole time. And everyone that's been watching college football knows he has not. but we're also entering a time where I think that these games are going to go away. Not the Clemson Duke game, but the games I'm about to mention. Not completely, but hopefully a bit. Now that we're into 3 just super major conferences, I hope that that increases conference games and the mandatory conference games that teams have to play. Because Purdue paid $1.35 million to invite Fresno State in. And here's the thing. Anyone that watches college football knows Fresno State's not a schlub team. They're right up there with they're right up there with like a Boise State, not quite as good as Boise State, but they're right up there with the teams of that ilk and what TCU used to be. So to pay them $1.35 million to come to your house, yeah, it's pretty brazen. And they lost.
Oregon got a fight out of Fresno State last year.
Yeah. Yeah, Fresno State's not a joke.
No.
No, they aren't. They're a smaller school. They have like a smaller budget, but they are scrappy. And when they have these like big showcase games, they do not disappoint. They totally turn out, do some weird stuff on both sides of the ball too. Make it interesting. They make it fun. So
yeah, they're a feeder school. They're a feeder school for a lot of the high schools in Northern California that are not named De La Salle, that people don't really think about. And they're those corn-fed boys up in the mountains in California, the Sonoras, the Calaverises, the Bret Harts, the decent football teams that are just smaller schools because of population that people don't think about. Fresno State eats off those kids. They eat off all the kids in the community colleges in California. And it's not just Texas and Florida that can produce football recruits. California is a hotbed. Ask Oregon.
Well,
for great talent.
Their coach is also Jeff Tedford, who was the Cal coach, and he got canned from Cal, but he was probably their last decent coach they ever had. It's hard to be good at Cal, and he was like their last good coach.
Over in TCU, he was also a Cal head coach, and he did decent at Cal, and look what he can do when he has talent. Cal's not an easy school because they also, much like Stanford, have academic rules that players have to be eligible for to play. So, and that's probably a big reason why these schools have fallen on hard times. And then you have Texas State getting paid by Baylor $375,000 to go in and smack down Baylor. Now, we can all hate on Baylor for a variety of reasons, right? Womanizing. Who is the old head coach that's now at LSU from Baylor?
I think it was a little worse than womanizing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be careful with my words here. That was really bad.
Mulkey, yeah.
Basically, Art Briles is going to hell. Kim Mulkey and her anti-LGBTQ beliefs when she had Brittany Griner there, right? So Baylor is easy to dislike for a lot of different reasons. I think there was a funny tweet in Sports Reddit, which was like the downfall of Christian universities. And they threw in Baylor and Clemson due to the belief systems around those schools.
It's funny that you mentioned how easy it is to dislike Baylor, but all I can think about is when you just used to play as Baylor all the time in NCAA.
That's because they had RG3, to be fair. Like, I'm sorry.
You just made them into a powerhouse.
I had RG3 for 4 years. I just used him to run around forever. Like, you didn't really... Yeah, you're very, very right. And in my defense, that's also before we knew about all the terrible things that Art Briles was facilitating in Baylor, right? Like, and we all know that Art Briles is going to hell, to quote the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gatz. We all know that that's going to happen. There's a special place waiting for him with an armchair in hell. All right? Hopefully with tons of spikes all over it and lots of bad things, whatever goes on in hell. Hopefully I never have to find out. But we got some funny things happening when Texas State goes in there. Texas State, I'm going to repeat that, goes in there and knocks off Baylor, who was once a powerhouse in the Big 12, who made it to the college football playoff a couple years back, and then they lose to Texas State. Now, lots of people are saying this is due to transfer nation. And I'm okay with it, but Chelsea, you've got problems. I'm actually pretty passionately okay with it. But Chelsea, you don't like that players can get paid?
See, this is what happens. This is what happens when I don't speak up and cut you off before you start putting words in my mouth. No, I've said it time and time again on this show. Like, I am all for players getting paid. I hate how the transfer portal has been used to just really kind of bastardize the game. It's no longer like, oh, I'm going to go somewhere because they're paying me more or anything like that. I mean, you look at what Deion Sanders did to Colorado, like that is just a massacre. And when you talk about like cutting 80% of the team, like that is a lot of kids. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to transfer credits between colleges and maybe these kids have a little bit more help. It is help. It is working with both sides saying like, no, this class should count for this class. Here's the equivalents, all of this garbage. Plus, it's like you usually have to pay like some fees to get them all transferred. So like kids are missing their graduation requirements. They're having to retake classes. They're having to like just figure out a new major, like if the school that they're going to. And yeah, we can roll our eyes all we want, but the fact of the matter still stands that only 2% of college football players make it into the NFL and actually go pro.
Is it that? Is it 2% though? I thought it was less. I thought it was lower than that.
It is 2%. That like, and I don't know if that's just Division I. I think that's just Division I, but like that is a lot of kids whose futures beyond college have to get readjusted and reshuffled. So I mean, like you have a coach kicking kids off and telling them that they need to go find somewhere else to go play, to go to school because now they have no scholarship. Their tuition's no longer covered.
Yeah.
That sucks. This isn't just about like them, getting paid or not getting paid. This is their lives. Like it's so shady and gross, and just to do it all just for the athletic department, you've got to be kidding me. Why are we doing this?
Devil's advocate, though, there is a flip side to the coin. If you have a school like Baylor that has a toxic program, a toxic coach, kids are free to leave. As we saw, Baylor has gone to crap.
That is not the point that I was like advocating against, though. I'm saying that when these kids are pushed out, and yes, when you have situations at Baylor, but when you have things like that, usually schools that accept those kids that are basically like almost refugees, they usually get a little bit of like special consideration. I'm talking about just the main transfer pipeline. And yes,
NCAA doesn't give special considerations to anyone.
No,
I'm talking a big thing.
No, I am talking about the actual, like, the academic offices for kids transferring from bad schools. It is a thing.
You're talking about the credit transfers through academic.
Yes, I'm talking about, just like that whole side of the organization. They do actually really help facilitate kids moving away from bad situations, whether it's because of discrimination, whether it's because of sexual harassment, whether it's because of like any of these things. Like usually they get kind of put into a special bucket. I'm talking about just kids who were going to Colorado, who were like juniors and seniors and getting ready to plan out their graduations, and all of a sudden they have to leave the school because they have no funding. When it's the player's choice, that is a different conversation, and that's a matter of like just personal agency. Like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Well, I was talking more in terms of not having to wait a year.
Yeah. No, and that's great. Like, that part of it is great. I just think that the fact that coaches and athletic departments can push non-problematic players, just kids who just aren't great, but we're still brought in under the guise of having a scholarship. I still feel like that should be at least some sort of understood contractual agreement. That's going to be in place until the player decides like they're done.
So here's the thing. I the cutting of players is not an aspect of this argument where I thought we were going to go. So I did not consider that. That's a great point by you, Chelsea. I hate to say that, but great point when the coaches just cut kids. However, kids get cut all the time in every sport across the nation. Michael Jordan got cut one time, and apparently it's been way overblown. Apparently it wasn't as bad as we were all led to believe. But players get cut all the time, and I agree with you. That's not fair to them. It's difficult. But let's talk about the transfer aspect as far as, because let's be honest, college sports now, as unfair as it is run by football. Like, I'm talking about college sports are run by the football programs at these schools. Conference realignment is driven by the football teams. Now, I like the transfer portal. I think it's great that these players can move around. I like free agency. However, in the NFL, free agency has its limits. Like, once you sign that contract, you can make a big fuss, you can throw a temper tantrum, but once you sign that contract, you're locked in. Wes and I talked about this, I think, on a podcast that Chelsea was not in, where we said there's got to be some rules. Like, you have to have like a 2-year limit or something before you can leave. Something that makes it a little bit more fair so they can't just bounce around every single year to a different school. Like, you've made your choice. There's got to be some, now you've got to live with it. However, with the transfer portal, we've also seen a boost in NIL deals, right? NIL deals have gone up with this transfer portal because they're trying to entice kids to go. So Shedeur Sanders is getting paid more base salary with his NIL deals than 2 different players. And again, I said base salary. And I thought this was fascinating. 1, Dak Prescott, making more than Dak Prescott this year. 2, one of Wesley's favorite quarterbacks, Joe Burrow. So he's making more base salary, 3 times as much as Joe Burrow is making in base salary. Now, some of us are going to scoff and be like, oh my God, that's so gross. I can't believe we're paying these kids. Shut the hell up. Shut up. I'm sorry it's not slave labor anymore. But also, here's the thing. You know what this is going to do to the NFL minimum salary, which all 3 of us in the show have been clamoring for? It's going to have to drive it up because you have to make a market correction. You cannot have pros making less than college athletes. So this is going to put so much pressure on the NFL, the next collective bargaining agreement, to raise the minimum salaries that I think it's going to be an overall win. If the minimum salary is raised to $1.5 million a year for all NFL players, that's going to really create a space where these players can amass some sort of wealth that allows them to get care after their NFL career. Because for a majority of players that make it to the NFL, that's the only money they will make. Despite what you think, you're going to go free college education, things like that. This may be the only money they make in their entire life. This is the bulk of the money they'll make, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, think about how hard all of you fought for higher minimum wage. All right? That's what these people go into after they're done destroying their body. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that thought process that I have going right now.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you because the average NFL career is 2 seasons. 2. Like, everyone that we see that is above the practice squad, above, that gets onto the 53-man team that is actually playing on the field, and you see season after season, those are the anomalies. Those guys that you recognize their name from the previous season, that's actually not normal. There's so much turnover that's
the 1% of the 2%.
Yeah, that happens at the lower levels. And it's not like there's a farm league, it's not like we can just, relegate them down.
No, there is. It's college football.
Right, but you can't send someone back down to college, right? So it's like, once they're done, they're done. And you're right. It is crazy. And I agree that maybe they should be going for more for the base salary, but I also do think, and this is where, things get a little bit weird, and I'm sure some people are going to call me a socialist, but I really think that the disclosure of NIL deals should be a cooperative thing across a university. And that pieces of this should be peeled back into a general fund for college athletes, just because the opportunities just aren't there for everybody else to be cashing out and making money. It's kind of like the revenue sharing for the football team does not just stay with the football department. It goes to fund all of the other sports. Why aren't we doing the same thing with players?
Big surprise. The water polo player wants the NFL player's money.
No, I'm just talking about just a tiny sliver.
Please, sir, can I have some money?
And that is kind of, actually, Wes, that is such a great embodiment of what it appears and what Chelsea's kind of clamoring for, that sports have become in college, is every other sport doing exactly that. And what I'm saying is, I wish some of these folks that are investing so much NIL money knew how popular women's softball is, especially come time of the Women's Softball World Series on ESPN. The numbers that the Women's World Series does on ESPN are outrageous. It's crazy. It's a big part of ESPN's programming during
It really
that
is.
time. It's huge. So, yeah, I agree with you, Chelsea, wholeheartedly. Wes, did you have something to say on that topic?
I mean, I pay more attention to the Women's College World Series than the Baseball College World Series.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I get really into it. I do. I have sisters that played softball, so I get really into it. I'm not going to lie. It's like March Madness for me. That is the time I start brushing up on my research and I start figuring out who's been good all year, what their statistics have been throughout the year, what the analytics are on this pitcher and this catcher combo. Like, I start getting into it during the Women's College World Series, but
Spoiler
I still
alert,
enjoy it.
It's Oklahoma and Alabama. I really just wish there was a little bit more parity.
Can I also make one more point about
UCLA
this?
is good.
What else is on TV in
Michigan.
sports around that time?
The Men's College World Series and baseball.
Well, it's usually a little bit after, but yeah.
But we also have the NBA going. Like, there are other sports happening at the same time, and the ratings are still crazy. Imagine what would happen if we actually advocated for like showing women's sports like
Invested.
in a national, like on the national stage. I mean, just look at Nebraska. Like, I don't know what gimmick they pulled to get 92,000 people into that stadium, because I didn't know there were 92,000 people in Nebraska, or that stadium could hold 92,000 people, but they did. And it's amazing. Like, that's awesome. Terrible that like this isn't, that the demand is there and we just aren't serving it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and I hope that we can get behind what Nebraska was able to do and just say, hey, look, people want to see this. Regardless of gimmicks, regardless of anything, people do want to see this. If you make it available, people will watch. People are complaining about the NWSL, okay? And the thing is, you know why we're complaining? Because you can't watch it anywhere. You can't get it. Like, I can't see it anywhere. So, of course, the ratings are low. There's nowhere to watch it. There's no one supporting it and pushing it forward. There are minor league teams, we'll call them FCS teams, not Arkansas State, but Portland State's definitely an FCS team, that are propelling some of these teams forward, like Oregon, who clearly needs to be propelled forward. They're on that Florida State model right now, where they just take on a cupcake, that Alabama model. Just take on a real cupcake week one and make it look tough in the Portland State Vikings. I mean, Oklahoma made Arkansas State's coach cry, right? Butch Jones was crying. I don't know if you guys saw that clip. Did you guys
That's sad.
Yeah, we saw that.
Crying at the game. It makes me sad that this is the athlete, the competitor in me, but I totally felt the same way as this tweet that I read, and it said, I swear if I see the coach crying on the other sideline, I got to put up 7 more.
I mean, I kind of get it, because it's got to be frustrating that is how your program is televised nationally. But at the same time, like, I'm going to advocate a little bit for this Portland State Oregon matchup, because
which is exactly what Wes was going to do.
It is just a transfer of Oregon's wealth to another in-state school. It's our in-kind donation that we make almost every year. It's a very nice little arrangement we've got going on. They get more money for research, for some of their other programs that they've got going on. Awesome. Good for them, because they don't use it for their athletic department, and it shows.
So
doesn't hurt that they're FCS.
Here's the thing. Okay, it was a blowout. Yes, it's always a blowout. But the thing is, usually as we get into the second half and we bring in our second and third stringers, and Portland State still keeps their starters in, usually there's like a lot of miscues by the defense or the offense. They score a couple touchdowns, and usually it ends up being like 60 to like 21 or something like that. Still a blowout. But the thing is that I was trying to say during our pre-production meeting is that Oregon's backups still kept their focus. Yeah, they still kept their focus. They kept their eye on it. And Ty Thompson last year, even against Cupcakes, he didn't look that good in relief, but he looked really sharp this year. Again,
he looked really sharp this year or this last game?
This last game.
we'll see how this year goes when they're not playing the Portland State Vikings, that powerhouse of the FCS.
Yeah,
I think
but
they've won
again,
1,000 championships for the
compared
FCS.
to-
Oh wait, they haven't won any.
compared to the games he played against Cupcakes last year, he's looking better. He's actually looking like a serviceable quarterback now. Serviceable
Against
backup.
Portland State. That's good. That's good that he playing.
What did UCLA do?
It used to be they won. And what used to be the Pac-12. It's good to know that your backup quarterback is at least decent against Portland State.
It's
really
still
good against
the
Portland State.
Pac-12. It's still the Pac-12. We've got, TikTok, but it's still the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is so far undefeated this year.
Yeah, undefeated and 6 teams ranked in the top 25.
It'll be
tied with
interesting.
SEC, but one of those SEC teams has a loss.
It'll be interesting to see how this goes throughout the season. Washington definitely surprised me. I thought that Boise State game was going to be a little bit closer, and Washington just rolled. Of course, they do have a 28-year-old quarterback, so that's going to help them a little bit against these 19 and 20-year-old kids. But they looked very good. I will say this: that's another throwing motion that looks so weird to me. It was how do you pronounce the name? Penix?
Penix, not Penix.
His throwing motion. One, left-handed quarterbacks always throw me off, to be clear. Because it's weird to see a quarterback move this direction and throw from back here. That throws me off. But he has one of the shortest throwing motions, so it's so weird that he can get the velocity on the ball that he gets on the long ball. Because his throwing motion is that. And it's really trippy to me if you watch his throwing motion from just a quarterback angle on the camera. If you're just watching him, it's just weird. It doesn't look like he gets any thrust on it, but the ball gets so much velocity going down the field. It's crazy.
Now, even his feet are always moving. He's never I've only seen him throw planted 25% of the time. Maybe he's always just moving, scrambling as he's throwing. And you're right, it is just a very quick flick, but
it's like a shot put almost, but it's weird. What are you gonna say, Wes?
Nothing.
What caught your attention?
Nothing.
Are you laughing at how I said his name?
No,
No.
something else you said.
What did I say?
thrusting because he's 12.
Oh. Gotcha.
Penix.
Now.
Thrusting.
Yeah. Sorry, I was like, what the hell is this guy's name again? I know he was at Indiana, and I couldn't pronounce his name then either. But
Can we just have a funeral for Florida real quick? They've lost their last 2 games to Pac-12 teams.
yeah, I guess there was something to Utah having to go play in that swampy weather in Gainesville because they put it on Florida in this game with their backup quarterbacks, not quarterback, quarterbacks. They played 2 different quarterbacks in this game, and you're right. I think that the game that we're all excited for, though, is another SEC game this week, right? Now, obviously, the NFL's back. We're very excited for that. Lions Chiefs is going to be a lot of fun coming Thursday, and we're looking forward to that. And we're going to review all the games as we always do, well, the important ones, next week. But how do we feel about Texas going in there with Quinn Ewers, the mullet, as I've called him in the past, to play Alabama?
I still think Texas is overrated. From last season to this season, I don't know if anything's changed. I mean, obviously they got it together, but the first half of the Rice game looked like Rice was going to Rice and just come out of nowhere, take down a top team, and then walk away and do absolutely nothing for the rest of the season because they like to do that occasionally. But I don't know. I just I'm not seeing a top 10 team there, and I unfortunately think Alabama's just going to win here. I don't think that that's going to be anything unexpected. Though,
it's hard to believe in Texas.
They almost beat this Alabama team last year, and they have more returning starters than Alabama does.
I can't. It's
wow,
Texas.
You're there, huh? You're there where you can't even think of the words to say I don't have faith in Texas?
Texas. I don't have faith in them. They're Texas.
When was the last time, really, that
Vince Young.
they didn't just totally whiff it?
Vince Young.
Vince Young, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
2004?
So that's not fair
it's-
because the Texas team that played Alabama in the national championship, Colt McCoy got hurt on like the first drive, and freshman Garrett Gilbert had to come in and play that game.
It's true.
They didn't have depth. That's sounds like a skill issue.
Yeah.
Maybe they needed that transfer portal, that NIL. Moving forward, let's just a couple news items before we end the show. Wes, what happened in Spain?
So they canned what's his name? Jorge Vilda. And
Jorge Vilda's gone.
Louis Rubiales is suspended. So it sounds like the Spanish Football Association kind of was backed into a corner and they finally decided to act, which is good. Because screw those
under
guys.
threat of being kicked out of UEFA, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
UEFA. Basically all international soccer activities they were going to be banned from. And at first, Spain tried to flex and be like, "It would be so empty without me." But then they looked at their paychecks and their books and they said, "Wait a second, this is a large part of our economy. No, not sports economy. Our Spanish economy is largely driven by our athletics, and a large portion of our athletics are these soccer federations, these football federations. So maybe these two individuals' stances on how they should be allowed to treat women and how they should be allowed to womanize and hurt the women within their federation without any form of what's the word I'm looking for? Repercussions for their actions was probably the wrong way to go. So it's cool to see what Spain did there. Really proud of them in firing the head coach. Hopefully they follow through and fire their head of football operations as well. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Are we really proud of them, though? I mean, it's not like they proactively took the step. It took them being coerced and forced into making this decision. So, I mean, are we proud?
I'm proud they did the right thing. I don't know. That's that. I mean, I'm with you, but
what were their options? I mean, I just wanted to voice
fair.
I'm not proud of Spain. I'm just you did the bare minimum. Also, a couple
Spain's
weeks after
football federation, right? Not the country. The country's fine. The football
but
federation.
after the incident, it took a couple weeks to get the ball rolling. Whereas, in the United States, that would have been here's your pink slip before you even get off of the field.
Yeah, it took Hermosa suing them.
Yeah.
So, and then they tried to they did a lot of dirty things to her when she started to sue them. So you're right, Chelsea. Chelsea, you win. You're absolutely right. Hey, Spain Football Federation, way to do the right thing. Finally, after a large amount of coercion to get you to do the right thing. And then we've got news on Travis Kelce for all you NFL people. We have now heard that there is no structural damage. That's what's coming out of Kansas City, that it appears to be a hyperextension and that he will be missing at least Thursday night's game. Outside of that, do you guys have anything to add this week?
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
This is the TheSadFan. So the Mariners have lost 4 out of 5 games in September after losing 5 total games in August. And now we're fighting for the wild card instead of, it's... Get it together, Mariners. They've lost 3 in a row.
That's fair.
Man.
That's a fair statement. All right. Chelsea, anything to add?
Nah, just looking forward to week 2 of college football, week 1 of the NFL. Looking forward to all of it. What's up, bro?
One more thing. I will be in Lubbock.
One more thing.
I will be in Lubbock for the Texas Tech Oregon game this weekend.
Nice.
Very
So we'll get an
exciting.
update from the ground.
Yep.
We'll get an update from the ground. All right, everyone. We thank you for joining us each and every week. Now that football season's back, I fully expect to see a large portion of our audience back. We are available on YouTube at the TheSadFan Podcast Network. Our website will be coming soon. Hopefully this month, if not this month, 100% sure it will come next month. We appreciate you tuning in. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere where you get your podcasts. Please follow us on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it now. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at TheSadFan or TheSadFan12. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Hey.
No way.